In our industry, performance has become synonymous with a particular type of marketing. Performance marketing is digital, it's data-driven, it's tightly targeted, and it delivers an immediate return on investment. And it's been cast in the marketing press, as Sam has already mentioned, as the antithesis of brand marketing. By contrast, brand marketing is broad reach. It's delivered through traditional media channels with assumed wastage, and it doesn't deliver an immediate return on investment. So for marketeers whose own performance is often measured by short-term business and personal KPIs, the decision on where to invest the marketing budget is a pretty simple one, right? They're going to invest it in performance marketing. But that's not the right decision. Marketeers are under pressure to deliver sales now without any real incentive to think about the longer-term picture. Hence, they adopt a short-term mindset and focus only on short-term goals. They've become victims of what's been called the fallacy of short-termism, a mistaken belief that repeated short-term performance marketing will build long-term success and growth. So let's pause for a moment and think about what performance really means. Performance is the extent to which an investment is profitable. And the key word here is profitable. So ask yourself this, is performance a short-term sales spike now, or is performance long-term growth in market share and profit? Now, in reality, it needs to be both. A marketeer that has the vision to grow the business and the brand in the longer term will not be around long enough to do so if they can't deliver sales now. So I believe we need a new, broader definition of performance marketing, one that accounts for performance in the short term as well as performance in the longer term. A definition that includes the contribution that brand marketing makes to overall performance. And we've called this new definition, if you hadn't figured it out already, total performance marketing. Total performance marketing begins with understanding how people make decisions. Ultimately, marketing effectiveness comes down to growing the value of a business by influencing the decisions and choices people make about the things they buy. In the book Thinking Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist and behavioural scientist Daniel Kahneman explains how people's brains work using the concept of System 1 and System 2 thinking. Or as I like to imagine, Thing 1 and Thing 2 running around in my head trying to help me make decisions. System 1 thinking drives our emotional decision making. It's subconscious, so we don't even know we're doing it. It's instinctive, it's irrational, it's impulsive, and it's fast. By contrast, System 2 drives reasoned, rational, conscious, deliberate decision making. The rational processing of information takes a lot of cognitive effort, and consequently, compared to System 1 thinking, it's relatively slow. The purchase decisions we make every day are influenced by a combination of these two types of thinking, working together hand in hand. However, one type of thinking is more dominant than the other. And whilst we'd all like to think we make reasoned, rational, conscious decisions, neuroscientists have shown that emotional System 1 thinking is by far the most dominant. In fact, research by neuroscientists at Harvard University concluded that 95% of the purchase decisions we make are driven by our emotional subconscious System 1 thinking. And more often than not, the role for rational System 2 thinking is to just rubber stamp or post-rationalise the emotional decisions we've already made. Now, it's easy to recognise this in our own purchasing behaviour. I was recently in the marketplace for some new headphones, and I had my heart set on the new Solo Pro model from Beats. But they're an expensive purchase, so I needed to do some research to convince myself that they're worth the investment. Now, every review I read told me that there was one with better sound quality, one that was more durable, certainly one that was cheaper. So I'd be mad to buy these headphones, right? But then I finally found what I've been looking for, a rational reason to post-rationalise my emotional decision. Because the Beats Solo Pro headphones have an Apple One chip for Class 1 wireless Bluetooth connectivity and battery efficiency. Now, I don't really know what that means, but it's enough for me to post-rationalise my emotional decision to myself and, more importantly, to my wife. You see, I'd already made that emotional decision before I started my research. I was just looking for a rational reason to rubber stamp it. So to summarise at this point, for marketing to be successful at influence behaviour, there needs to be an element that influences our System 1 emotional thinking, combined with an element that influences our System 2 rational decision making, working hand in hand together. This understanding of how people make decisions is at the foundation of total performance marketing. So next I want to talk about why brand building is an essential part of total performance marketing. From their analysis of the IPA databank, Les Burnett and Peter Field found that the highest performing, most effective and most efficient campaigns combined emotional brand building that creates desire for the brand with rational sales activation that harvests demand in the short term. Now, their research is extensive, analysing the effectiveness of hundreds of campaigns over many years, the majority of which are backed up by full econometric models. But I've made an attempt today to crystallise their thinking into one chart. So here we go. On the one hand, communications can be used for brand building. Brand building means creating mental brand equity through emotional priming that predisposes potential customers to choose one brand over another. Emotional priming is defined as the subconscious associations built up over time through advertising and other brand experiences. Brand building is a long-term job. It involves conditioning consumers through repeated exposure over time. And it takes time to kick in, so it needs to happen long before people come to buy. It requires broad reach media because the aim here is to prime everybody that's in the market, regardless of whether or not they are in the market to buy right now. Brand building cannot assume close attention because most of the audience are not in the market at the time that they're exposed. So it relies heavily on emotional priming because this cuts through and builds associations in our subconscious minds, regardless of whether or not we're paying close attention. For this reason, emotional-led communications have much more impact than rational messages, which mostly get screened out. Given the effects of brand building take time to kick in, on average 6 months, they need to be measured using long-term metrics. Brand building is proven through econometrics to drive long-term growth, and on average it should account for around 60% of the marketing budget. TV is still by far the most effective brand building medium. On the other hand, communications can also be used for sales activation. Sales activation is different from brand building. The aim here is to focus on people who are likely to buy in the very near future. Sales activation should be designed to exploit the mental brand equity that's been built up over time through brand building activities to generate sales right now. And to be efficient, it requires tight targeting of audiences that are active and in market. Rational messaging is much more effective because in-market audiences are more interested in what you have to say. Sales activation delivers sales now, but there isn't a cumulative effect, and this is important. On its own, repeated sales activation does not deliver long-term growth. But sales activation has an immediate impact, so it should be measured using short-term metrics, and on average, it should account for around 40% of the marketing budget. Search marketing is by far the most effective channel. But really, the key point to take out of this, and from their analysis, is that brand building and sales activation, like System 1 and System 2 thinking, work better together. Working together as part of an integrated campaign, emotional priming makes people more receptive to rational messages, so increases short-term responses. In return, rational sales activation unlocks the short-term potential of the brand, converting brand equity more powerfully into sales. Burnett and Field concluded that integrated campaigns that can combine brand building and sales activation are 2.5 times more effective at driving business growth. So in summary, The econometricians agree with the psychologists, the behavioural scientists and the neuroscientists that for marketing investments to be profitable and drive growth, which after all is the very definition of performance, they need to combine long-term System 1 emotional brand building with short-term System 2 rational sales activation in an approach designed to work together. We call this approach total performance marketing. And I believe we're entering a new era, an exciting era for total performance marketing. Historically, there's been a disconnect between brand building and sales activation. One delivered through traditional channels, the other through data-driven digital channels, with no real way of joining them up. In the era of total performance marketing, everything is becoming connected, enabling the joining together of brand building and sales activation like never before. And data is the glue. Data and technology makes it possible for us to connect brand building and sales activation across platforms, across channels, and importantly, across time. In reality, brand building and sales activation are not binary. It's better to think of them as a continuum, with purely brand building at one end, purely sales activation at the other, and a whole combination of different variations in between. Data and technology has made it possible to connect with audiences along this continuum across the entire customer journey. We can use data to understand precisely where potential customers are in their journey. When they're not actively in market, we can serve them an emotional brand building experience. And when they become active and have signaled an intent to purchase, we can serve them more rational comms that give them reasons to buy. And as more and more media becomes data-driven, we have a wider range of channels to play with. Take Sky AdSmart as an example. And furthermore, because more and more media are becoming shoppable, every touchpoint is now a potential point of purchase, further closing the gap between brand building and sales activation. From a creative perspective, to deliver total performance marketing, we need to create fluid ideas. Traditionally, brand building was done through set-piece advertising in big broadcast channels, reaching millions of people simultaneously. Today, brand building ideas need to be designed to work in a media environment that is both fragmented and connected. Fluid ideas are designed to be adaptable. They work across different channels. Fluid ideas adapt to the shape of the format they are in, and fluid ideas flow through social networks. They're designed to be shared and talked about. A great example of this is Snickers. The core brand idea, "You're not you when you're hungry," is now 10 years old. It's a fluid idea that's been reimagined many times, from the original Joan Collins video right through to the most recent Elton John. The core idea has been adapted to work online and through social media. "You're not you when you're hungry" became a social data-driven algorithm called the Hungerithm. Now, the Hungerithm uses social data to measure when the internet is hungry and links this hunger index to the price of Snickers in local retailers. The hungrier the internet becomes, the cheaper the price of a Snickers. It's even been adapted for a fun search strategy that targeted misspelt keywords with the message, "You're not you when you're hungry." From a media perspective, to deliver total performance marketing, we need to embrace video in all its forms. Historically, brand building has relied heavily on broad reach channels, with the most effective of these being broadcast television. Now, television is still by far the most effective brand building channel, but as a medium, it is in decline as video viewing becomes more and more fragmented. Figures from Ofcom show that broadcast accounts for 46% of 16 to 34's viewing, versus 71% for all adults. In 2013, 16 to 34s watched on average 133 minutes of broadcast television a day. By 2018, this had fallen to 97 minutes a day, and in 2028 is forecast to only be 45 minutes a day, according to media analysts Enders. Now, personally, as a father of a 16-year-old who spends his free time switching between his Xbox, Netflix, YouTube and TikTok, I find some of these figures optimistic. Enders also forecasts that 16 to 34's video viewing will rise to 216 minutes a day by 2028. 78 of those minutes will be on YouTube, social video, and other online video. And 58 of those minutes will be on platforms that do not run advertising, such as Netflix. So the implication for brands is that they need to develop a total video strategy, one that has the potential to work across channels, formats, and time lengths, from TV through to social and beyond. In addition, brands need to think about deeper integrations with content that exists in advertising-free environments. The recent Netflix, Stranger Things, and Coca-Cola partnership is a good example of this. And finally, to deliver total performance marketing, we need to measure the total effect, remembering that the effects of brand building and sales activation work at different speeds and therefore require different kinds of measurement. The effects of brand building, as we've already heard, take time to kick in, but they're still working long after the campaign has ended. So to evaluate total performance marketing, we need to be able to measure short-term effects with long-term effects. In an independent research study by Ubiquity and Gain Theory, it was estimated that attribution modelling only measures the tip of the iceberg, 18% of the total effect of advertising. 58% of the effects occur in the longer term and consequently can only be measured by long-term econometric models. So in summary, performance marketing has been cast as the antithesis of brand marketing. In reality, they are co-dependent, relying on each other to deliver sales now and growth in the future. That's why we need a new inclusive definition of total performance marketing. Total performance marketing is rooted in an understanding of how people make decisions about the things they buy. It combines emotional brand building with rational sales activation, and it needs to be measured over the short term and the long term. At RocketMill, we believe we're entering a new exciting era of total performance marketing, empowered by data and technology to connect brand building and sales activation like never before. But to take advantage of this new era, we need to create fluid ideas, embrace video in all its forms, and measure the total effect. Thank you for listening.